of CRM, and I'm going to ask him to tell us what it was like to suddenly have a quilt show descend on him, what were some of the challenges, and what were some of the things he wasn't expecting. Here's Tom.
Thanks, John. Well, I think the first thing that I learned about the Quilt Show was the amazing artwork. And I was just telling someone a little bit ago that we didn't understand the gallery aspect of it like we do now after 2 seasons of having just amazing work come in from all over the world. And so I was just telling somebody that I would take pictures of the different quilts and shoot them to my art director friends, including my wife, who's an art director, because I was so fascinated with the detail and the work of the art itself. So I think just from a content standpoint, I think we were all kind of shocked at the amazing artwork that we were working with. I think everybody here thought of quilts as being what their grandmother had on their, on their bed when they were kids or whatever. And so it's been a real interesting way to absorb all this. And we're becoming kind of quilt mavens here, just kind of paying attention to all of it. So what were some of the challenges? Well, the first thing that was the biggest challenge was the COVID situation a year ago, where we had to deal with people who couldn't necessarily make it because of travel. Travel had been canceled, dates were shrinking, rules were changing. Every state, every city had a different rule. And so we did a pretty good job, I think, of pulling it together. We weren't able to get the sets necessarily set up as early as we had hoped because of scheduling issues, and so that definitely had an effect on the space and size of the studio. If John can just kind of take a quick look around, maybe you can see how big this really is, the studio, and give you some idea of how compacted we all are in here. And I think we were all happy, at least initially, to find out that we wouldn't have to have an audience. And although we love audiences because they had a lot of impact, COVID along with audiences just didn't go hand in hand, and so we had to make a decision to go without an audience. And so we're almost through the COVID thing. I mean, we're hoping that by the next time we do this, maybe we'll have an audience, and that'll change, obviously, how things are done. But yeah, so the floor. So because we had things in storage and we had to pull the floor out and lay it out later than we had hoped, it had some bumps in it. And so we had some issues with the flooring because of that. This year, however, because we had seen what to expect and knew what we were dealing with, we brought those floors out, I'd say 10, 11 days ago now, and had them laying where all this was, just flat. And then we took sets, which were very heavy pieces of plywood with frame around them, and we laid them all on the floor on these different layers of sheeting, vinyl sheeting, to be able to give us a flat floor. And if you can see behind me, I don't know if you can tell from here, the floors look great. I think we got very lucky in terms of being able to take some of the roll out of them. But flooring in general has a tendency, especially when it's sheet vinyl like that, to have a memory, and so it wants to remain with bubbles and things. But I think overall the set came out really great this time, and a lot of it was just having the ability to having done it once before, and give us a lot of extra prep time, days and weeks beforehand, to get everything ready.
I think people may not understand how the sets are.
Sure. So how did we get the sets? That's a great question, John. So where did the sets come from? The sets are a combination of sets that we have here that we keep standardized at CRM Studios that people can walk in the door and use any day of the week. Then we also have set pieces that we brought from Colorado. We set a team up to Colorado to bring back all of the sets that were left over from where you guys were shooting up, I guess in the Denver area, right? And then we took those combination of pieces along with what we had here, and we created one big look. And again, at the time we were figuring this all out, we didn't necessarily understand the gallery as much as we do now in terms of the difference in quilts. We had no idea or an understanding that the quilts were so different in size. We had somebody here yesterday, Dave Serrata, whose quilts some of them are this big. and we have quilts that we hung this week that are 10 times that size, 8 times that size. So I think the other thing that kind of surprised us when we were starting to set all this up was just the difference in all the different sizes of the quilts. Again, every time that a guest comes in and needs to be set up with their own gallery of their best work or the work they're going to talk about, we have to really figure out how are we going to hang it. Every single artist has a different style or look. And then we have other artists who may not showcase their quilts. We had a guest here on the very first day where we were showcasing the elements, the materials that she brings from Thailand and Bali. And so we created a special set just for her that kind of showcased the materials she brings back that she has manufactured for her customers to use in quilts.
So were there any technical filming challenges doing a quilt show?
Well, there's always lots of challenges when you have to try to follow a somewhat linear schedule throughout a shooting phase. A lot of times if we're going to shoot green screen, we shoot all the green screen together. Or if we're going to do something on a particular set, we'll use just that set and shoot everything we have to on it. But because we're doing the quilt show in somewhat of a linear order, so editing can be put together, and because you have guests that are either morning guests or afternoon guests, it means you have to shoot different areas throughout the day. And so it creates more lighting issues that have to be corrected and changed. But it also makes it much easier to compile the final show, which, by the way, is live switched in our control room. So we have 4 to 5 cameras going at any given time, 3 to 4 cameras, depending on what day it is, and we switch between those cameras so that, somewhat like what you see when you watch a news show, we're pretty much 85% done with the show by the time we're done shooting. Then the editor, Rick, who's a super great guy out of Chicago, he takes all those materials and he could insert, maybe there's another quilt that we need to add to it, or maybe we have a pickup shot that we need to add, or we might have another shot that, so you kind of rough it out, basically live switching it and get it to 80-85% done, and then the rest of the time they can add the music in and add the layering in and put graphics and special effects and all the other things that finish out a show. And so it's kind of fun to watch us go through these, because when we're done every day, we've got almost 2 shows completely done, other than what Rick has to go do.
So are we invited back?
Oh, I think you're always invited back. I think I tell this story, I've been telling it all week, that years ago when I was doing my first entertainment piece with Joe Bob Briggs, who's, I guess he's on Scream Network or one of the private networks, and he's been back here since. When we talked to the guys in the truck, they said, "Oh, we want to do anything that doesn't have a ball in it." And of course, I didn't understand at the time that these folks had been doing NBC Sports, ABC Sports. They did nothing but sports, and so anything that didn't have a ball in it was what they were happy to do. We do a lot of corporate stuff here. We do a lot of medical stuff here. We do a lot of GameStop, a lot of gaming stuff here. And so it's always a treat to be able to do something completely different. And honestly, doing quilts like this is completely different than almost everything we do every day. And it's been really, it's been fun because of that. I think everyone, down to the grips, the gaffers, the lighting guys, the camera guy, I think everybody, even in the control room, is fascinated with what they're seeing. I'm watching them taking pictures of the quilts, and that's not their job. So it tells me that somebody out there that works on this likes this. All the crew, I think they're all kind of fascinated with it. So, yes, please come back.